The Innovators Network.
Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Hello and welcome. I'm Phil McKinney. This week, we are reaching deep into the archive and bringing you one of our most downloaded shows. Enjoy.
This episode is sponsored by Zoom. With Zoom, you can streamline your communication, collaboration, and creativity all in one place. Zoom is the market-leading platform that provides video meetings, voice, webinars, and chat across desktops, phones, tablets, and conference room systems. To learn more about Zoom and sign up for your free account, visit killerinnovations.com/Zoom.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. This is your host, Phil McKinney. We are back here in the studio in Northern Colorado. Today's show is about a topic that I find personally intriguing. It's something that's, if I had to study 30 years ago, it probably would have helped me. But it's something that I had to learn over my entire career, and that is the impact of team size on creativity and innovation output. Does team size have an impact? Now, this is a study done by Gene Brett and Dasham Wang at the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern, north of Chicago. And it's a study that is called, If You Want Creativity, Keep Your Team Small. If you want creativity, keep your team small. Now, how did I find this study? I'm going to give you a little bit of insight on how I try to stay up on the latest academic research on innovation, creativity, teams, leadership, etc. And that is I create a whole slew of Google alerts. This particular one is sent to me from Google Scholar. I'm looking for certain terms of research reports and studies published by academics, governments, etc., around the area of leadership, teamwork, innovation, creativity, technology, etc. And that's how I stay up. So that's how this study ended up in my inbox. And as I read the title, it was a little, more than a little intriguing on if you want creativity, keep your team small. Now, what does that mean? Now, I've read the entire study, and now boil it down to the fundamental theme. And the fundamental theme is larger teams come at a cost of reduced innovation and creativity. Really. Larger teams come at a cost of reduced innovation and creativity. Basically, they say that large teams solve problems. Small teams generate new problems to solve, more disruptive. As teams grew from 1 to 50 in their study, levels of disruptiveness. Now, is disruptiveness even a word? The level of disruptiveness plummeted. Now, team size was the cause. This study extracted out all the other barriers, such as industry, topic or type of research, the area, the technology or non-technology. It didn't matter. Size was the one variable that was directly correlated to disruptiveness. Now, what they meant by disruptiveness is breaking new ground in totally new areas. The large teams now did deliver value. They delivered or contributed materially to science and other creative fields by developing established ideas. They worked on areas that maybe another smaller company, a small startup, got started on, but didn't have the financial means to really dig deep. And this is where large organizations, large companies have or secure their benefit. That is they have the resources to take an early kernel of an idea and really dig deep on it. Now, in many cases, the large organizations are doing what? They are acquiring small, innovative, highly disruptive companies in order to bring those technologies and those people into the larger organization to hopefully not just finish what they had started, but actually to be the catalyst for starting something totally new. Now, while that has been attempted to be successful, there's pluses or minuses to that strategy of large companies leveraging the disruptiveness of small companies. The fundamental issue is that large organizations need to address what is it about large organizations that impact their teams from being highly disruptive, highly creative, highly innovative. And in my view, it breaks down into three areas. One is called relational loss. This is the perception of team members that they are working with little support from the other team members. If you're part of a 50-person team and you're working like crazy, but you don't directly see or hear or are highly engaged with all 50 people, which I don't know how you would be. How do you become a team of 50? I don't know how you do that. Your perception is that you're doing the work and you're not getting the same level of effort from everybody else on the team. Another one is social loafing, what's called social loafing. This is the tendency of individual group members to contribute less. So relational loss is I'm doing the work, you're not contributing. Social loafing is hey, I'm part of a big team. Nobody's really watching my deliverables really closely or my contribution really closely. So I can maybe back off a little. I don't have to be quite as intense. If I'm part of a 5-person team where everybody sees everybody, I got to lean in. I've really got to throw my weight in here, or I'm going to be viewed as not being as valuable or as influential. The third area is a lack of development maturity. The lack of development maturity. Larger teams tend to look to leaders for direction and the motivation. Where are we going? What's the task? What do you want me to work on? What's the next thing that we need to work on? And in this case, they rather than self-organize and select and identify a leader, they're looking for somebody outside the team to be that leader, to be that person that is going to tell us what it is we need to do. Now, how's that different from smaller teams? Smaller teams frequently progress to periods of intense productivity. Why or how? It's fueled by trust based relationships, by structures, and by consensus. If you're part of a 3, 4, 5, 6-person team, everybody can get on a phone call. Nobody's drowning out the conversation. It's not 50 people trying to talk, it's 5 or 6. You can have your discussions, you can get aligned, you can get consensus, and you can move forward with a common vision, a common passion for what it is you're trying to do, the problem you're trying to solve through the use of innovation and creativity. Big teams, hard time self organizing. You need, in many cases, you got to have a leader, you have to anoint them, and then people will follow that person. Small teams, very good at self organizing, and in many cases, they actually prefer to self organize. They prefer to self select what it is they want to do and how they're going to break down the work and how they're going to manage the scrums and how they're going to communicate and how they're going to stay in sync. That is the difference between those larger teams and the smaller teams. So, if you're part of a large organization, what do? Just throw your hands up and walk away? No. There are ways to address the size problem. The key is asking yourself how to make large teams or parts of them into small teams. How do you take a 50-person team and break them down into 10 5-person teams? It's what's called MTS, or multi-team systems. This is where you take larger teams, break them down into small teams, organized with some form of structural network. Now, that structural network, that structure that you apply to an MTS kind of environment, can either be hierarchical or maybe it's not hierarchical, right? But how do you break down that work so that that team feels small? They understand their vision. They understand what they're signing up for to deliver. They understand their commitment to the 4 other people on their 5-person team, that if this team is going to be viewed as a high impact, high output, highly innovative, highly creative team, the 5 of them have to get in sync and act like a small team. Now, MTS is still not fully vetted or proven as to what structure is best. There's a lot of approaches and a lot of philosophies that different organizations will try to apply, but it gets you part of the way there because your other choice is you're just part of a large team, and the success from a large team typically is not that great. Large teams tend to deliver late, over budget, and not to the quality of what it is you're trying to create. What is it you're trying to invent? So, again, this study, if you want creativity, keep your team small, basically is the spark for today's show. Throughout the rest of today's show, I'm going to talk about my own personal experience with everything from what I thought were large teams to very, very small teams to very, very large multinational organizations. We're also going to take a look at other teams, other organizations where they've had very large teams or very small teams and the success that they've had. And then in the last segment, I'm going to share you the answer to the title for today's show. What is that optimal innovation team size? What is it? Now, what we've shown in the study today is 1, you're highly creative and highly innovative. 50, your level of disruptiveness is almost 0. The answer is not 1. The answer is not 50. Stay tuned because I'll share you the answer to that point. This segment, we're going to talk about my own experience in team sizes. Wide range of sizes over the entire length of my career. Now, in segment 1, we talked specifically about this study from Northwestern University. By the way, I will include a link to that study in the show notes, so hop on over to killerinnovations.com. You can download the actual study and read it for yourself. But what I want to talk about in this segment is my own experience of team size. Now, my early career started at a company called Deltak, Deltak. Deltak is not the educational software company that you think it is today. This is Deltak in the early 80s. It was founded by a guy by the name of Bob King, who's actually retired, living in the Chicago suburbs. Deltak was a subsidiary who had been acquired by Prentice Hall Publishing. The name Deltak came from Bob King's Farrar college group, which was called the Delta K's. And so that's how the name Deltak came around. Now, I thought that this was a large organization and we had large teams. And how do you get everybody organized? And what we did was we developed training materials, computer-based training, video training, and it was all around technology. Everything from IBM mainframes to DEC VAX to how do you program in C to down to the PCs. And to publish and produce this kind of material and content, printed, video, audio, computer-based, required large teams. It's basically a publishing operation. Thought it was huge. Later on in my career, I ended up with ThumbScan. ThumbScan, small company, smallish company, funded by Frontenac Venture Capital out of Chicago. And ThumbScan was actually a mid-sized team. You had, a couple dozen people at the peak of its organization structure. And even then I was frustrated by, the need to get everybody aligned and how do you get the work done and how are we going to, make this thing actually deliver. And again, we experienced where designed by committee, it took much longer and delivered late, and we had functionality challenges and problems with this technology. And it was basically a fingerprint biometric technology. And I got totally frustrated. So I came up with this idea for what's called PC Boot. It was a security product like ThumbScan, but based on something completely different than biometrics. And I actually went off, and it was a team of one. I just went off into the corner and said, something, I'm going to build this product. I don't have to deal with all these crazy people inside of an organization. I can just ignore them because I am going to build this from scratch, right? That product, PC Boot, won Product of the Year at Comdex that year. My first Product of the Year award ever in my career. I've won a couple dozen of them since, but you always remember the first one. Product of the Year, Comdex. Now people would say, wow, that was a great success. Therefore, all teams should be one. Let me give you the real skinny here. It took me by myself a lot longer to build that product to the point where the company, the parent company, which was ThumbScan, ran out of money, right? I was focused on delivering the high quality product, and it took me much, much longer to do it by myself than if I was able to bring in three, four, five people and properly manage it. Now, what's the difference and the impact across all of these? As a leader, starting off as a manager and then becoming a director, etc., I learned I needed to do a better job of communicating. It wasn't the other people, it wasn't their fault of not being able to deliver. This was my fault. I needed to do a better job of communicating. It's hard to share and evangelize your vision for your innovation. How do you get other people to sign on? Now, the easy way out was to do it myself, but it just didn't work out, for the long term. Great product of the year, company went out of business. Not a success. Now, startup teams tend to be smaller teams. That's why large organizations acquire them. Large multinationals tend to be the largest of teams. Now, I thought I'd worked on large teams before, at companies like Deltac, part of Prentice-Hall Publishing. But at HP, when I left HP, we were 240,000 employees, 120 billion in revenue. And we had between 35,000 and 40,000 engineers working, 35,000 to 40,000 engineers, depending on how you counted them. At HP, I realized managing large teams was not going to work because I was brought in to effectively bring innovation and creativity to HP and turn around some problem areas within the organization. So I formed the Innovation Program Office, which was a small team inside of a large organization. Now, I've talked about IPO before. You can go over to killerinnovations.com and search for them. Stanford and Harvard business schools have written case studies on IPO. There's actually been chapters of books written about the Innovation Program Office. You can go check those out. The IPO basically was a maximum of 30 people. The average team was 3 to 5 max at any given time. That's right. 3 to 5 people on a team maximum. That was until it went to production. If you got to take an innovation and deliver it to 135 countries, guess what? You got to plug into the big mothership. But the innovative side, the disruptive side, keeping the teams very, very small. And I spent most of my time shielding this team from the influence of large parts of the organization. Now, team size or span of control became a metric inside of HP. One of the things they saw as team was having success was, how do we take the rest of the organization and break it down? So span of control, how many people can report to you? How many people can you manage? I am shocked, still shocked, repeatedly every time I hear someone try to argue that, yes, they could have 20 or 25 people report to them. And I'm like, if you can, you're a better leader than I can, because I never figured out how to do that, right? Team size is important. And this whole thing of span of control, how many people have report to you, and how many people report to the people that report to you. So how many, as you go deeper in the levels. Speaking of levels, Mark Hurd, when he was CEO, put down the edict that he did not want more than 8 levels between him and the staff person on the front line within the organization. 8 levels. I think at some parts of HP, we were 14 or 15 levels deep. And this resulted in taking out entire layers of management. It solved the problem where you had a leader who only had one direct report to them. Do you really need that extra layer? No. So, looking inside your team, if you're part of a large organization, to looking at team size, span of control, and organization depth can allow you to organize more effectively, but it does not address this issue of, as a leader, you need to do a better job communicating, you need to set the vision, you need to evangelize, and you need to get people bought in, and you need to grant teams autonomy and self-control. 2 characteristics important for innovation, team success. Let's talk about other teams. I just spent the last segment sharing with you my own experience starting early in my career, and then my time at HP, it being just a phenomenally large organization. Let's talk about some other teams. Other teams that I'm sure you've heard of these, and let's talk about how they organized. Let's talk about Apple Macintosh. Now, let's go back to the early 80s Apple history. So, Apple came out with the Apple I product in the late 70s. They had the Apple II, the Apple II Plus. They then had the Apple III, not a very successful product. Why? Because it was designed by committee. In the case of Apple I and Apple II, it was primarily Steve Wozniak, lone engineer or a very small team of engineers building it. The Apple III was developed by committee. So what happened? Then came Lisa. Oh, we'll reduce the team size and we'll do better and we're going to really create this disruption. Lisa, way too expensive. Again, designed by committee. Then what happened is the development of Macintosh. And Steve Jobs kind of figured out, he had this hint that team size was successful. Why did the Apple I and Apple II and II Plus do so well, but the Apple III and Lisa failed? Team size. So what did he do? He handpicked the Macintosh team, put them into a separate building, locked the doors, an Apple badge would not get you in to the Macintosh building. He even went to the point of raising a pirate flag above the building that the Macintosh team was working in. And what happened? It was quite successful. He separated that team from the larger organization to reduce the risk of large team influence. Now, another project that had a very, very large team was the Manhattan Project. So let's go back in history. What is the Manhattan Project? Manhattan Project was the project started in the United States during World War II to create the atomic bomb. Now, it started off with a very small team at the very beginning who kind of laid out the fundamental elements that needed to be put in place. It took each of those elements, those teams, those organizations, and split them up. They split them up geographically. They split them up based on purpose and focus. So you had the Fermi team in Chicago focused on proving the fundamental science of splitting atoms. You had the team in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, focused on atomic fuel and being able to generate the atomic grade materials that would be used in the bombs. You had Livermore Labs, you had Sandia, you had all these labs scattered around the country, all working in bits and pieces. Each of them knew their focus area. Each of them knew what input they needed from another team. Each of them knew the output that they had to generate to go back to another team in order for them to continue the progress. And it was through that segmentation of roles, responsibilities, and in this case, actually separating them geographically, that I think ultimately contributed to the success of the Manhattan Project. At the same time, one of the things, even though the teams were focused on the Manhattan Project, they all knew what the ultimate goal was: create an atomic bomb. And they knew what their role was in contributing to that larger objective of creating an atomic bomb. And I think that alignment, that understanding, that sense of mission, the segmentation of the roles down to small teams, granting those teams autonomy to get the job done the way they felt they needed to get it done, that led to success in Manhattan. One that's a little bit closer to me is Palm WebOS. Now, some of you may or may not be familiar with Palm. Palm was the very first highly successful PDA, handheld device, kept your calendar, your contact list, etc. on it. Palm went through and got onto an acquisition spree with their success. They acquired 3Com, the very first developer of Ethernet switches, basic networking technology, and they got into a whole bunch of different areas. They had kind of toyed with being in the mobile phone business in the original Palm Treo device, but they really knuckled down and restructured their business in order to focus on mobile phones. That's where they felt their future lie. And they developed an operating system called WebOS. So what they do, they created a very small team. They recruited a part of that team being part of the original team on the iPhone from Apple. along with some other really top talent, and they developed WebOS. And that team is very, very small. Now, if you're not familiar with WebOS, go out, check the Wikipedia page. What I find interesting is a lot of the features that are in web or were in WebOS are now things that you see in Android and Apple today. So Android and Apple, you love those things. They were heavily influenced and in fact copied or in some cases ripped off the ideas from WebOS. Now WebOS team started off small. As it got a little bit bigger, it started chopping up the teams to keep them small. So a team focused on the GUI and team focused on the Wi-Fi, and a team focused on the mobile RF services to work with the cellular networks, etc. Then they got acquired. Who'd they get acquired by? By HP. But they didn't stay small. They got sucked into a large team mentality. You know, it's like the old saying, I'm here from corporate and I'm here to help. They got crushed. There's probably more receptionists across HP than there were total employees at Palm by an order of magnitude. And as a result, they just got smothered, and that large team mentality kicked in and totally, I think, destroyed Palm and WebOS. Another example at HP, Snapfish. This was the online printing service. It was the first one out there. HP acquired it. CEO at the company I had known from my years in Washington, D.C., he reached out and said, hey, what would be your advice? We just got acquired. I told him, hey, do you have access key card control on your building? He goes, yeah. I go, okay, here's what I would do. Never, ever grant an HP person access or key card into your building. Stay separate, lock your doors. Do not let HP in. He did that for about 6 months. 6 months in, he finally acquiesced to the demands of HP. He got sucked in, and Snapfish has never been the same since then. One, again, that I was a little bit more closer to was Voodoo. Very, very small company, Calgary, Canada. These team, about 30 people, developed and delivered the most beautiful, the most powerful PCs and laptops ever invented. You would know them as Voodoo PC. Again, go off onto the web. You can search for them. I'm the one that acquired them. Raul Sood, Ravi Sood, two brothers. They own the company. Spent a lot of time getting to know them. Spent a lot of time in Calgary. I negotiated the deal. I signed the acquisition paperwork for them. We acquired their company, and HP totally crushed them. In fact, Voodoo was the first acquisition I had ever done when I first took over as CTO at HP. And what I found shocking was just even the IT integration cost. So this is just the cost to do things like integrate and share information like email, or get information out of the accounting system at Voodoo and over into the accounting system at HP. So interfacing some systems and getting laptops and PCs installed at Voodoo, and taking their network and putting the proper firewall in place. What was shocking is after we announced the M&A with Voodoo, we acquired them. It actually made the front page of the Wall Street Journal the day we did this acquisition. The IT integration costs were more than the entire acquisition cost. Let that sink in. And this isn't sales and marketing and leadership and strategy and all the other teams. This is just the IT integration cost. The IT integration cost for the Voodoo acquisition was more than the entire acquisition cost. Now, that isn't messed up, that is insane, right? But you had a team of 30 being acquired by a team of, well, at that time, I don't know, we were probably 40,000 employees, 50,000 employees at that time, right? Totally crushed them, smothered them, destroyed them. Raul Sood now is the founder and CEO of Unicorn. He's been on the radio show here with us, so you can go back and listen to his stories. But something that I look back upon with deep regret was that acquisition, and not seeing what the challenge that was going to be. So, as I said in segment 1, I was going to answer the question in segment 4, which is the optimal innovation team size is. Now, before I give you that number, let me give you a little bit of my thinking and my philosophy. If I use a religious reference, Jesus had 12 disciples. And the way I think about it is that if Jesus could only handle 12 direct reports, what makes me think I can handle more? Now, over my career, I've kind of tried and experimented and learned that my optimal team size, people who directly report to me, is in that 6 to 8 category. That's what I can handle. If I've had more than that in my career and I've had more than that, I tend to lose touch and therefore I'm less engaged and I have less ability to influence or direct. So for me, 6 to 8, I would argue that nobody should have more than 12. If you've got 13, 14, 15, 18, you've got way too many. You get too many on your innovation team. 6 to 8. If you recall in the earlier segment, I talked about the innovation program office at HB, and we would have 3 to 5 on a team. That was kind of the maximum. Now, we would start to grow that a little bit after the product or the idea or the innovation started to show promise, and we were going to be ramping up and delivering this on a global scale. But for me, teams that I lead, teams that are direct reports to me, 6 to 8 is kind of that magic number for me. Now, it's not just about the number, it's also about the roles and responsibilities on the team, the makeup of the team. As a leader, you are responsible to construct and pull together the team with the right skill sets. So I'm going to share with you the 7 people that I believe are core to any high functioning, high impact, high output innovation team. The 7 people you need to have. Number 1 is the visionary. This is the person who is the heart and soul of the idea. In some cases, it may have been the person who came up with the idea. It may have been somebody who collected up all the ideas from everybody and who really got their passion ignited, and they are all in. This is an all chips in kind of person. They've got that vision. They're evangelizing others to that vision. You need that visionary. You can't have a high output innovation team if all they're doing is building what the memo tells them to build. You need the visionary. Next is the leader. This is the person who recruits and motivates the best people on the team. A true leader. And here's the one thing I've learned over and over again, and please listen. The visionary is not the leader. Very rarely is the visionary the leader. The type of person you need to be the visionary is not the skill sets you need to be a leader. 2 different people. Third is the mother. This is the person who's sensitive to everyone and makes sure everyone's taken care of. Everybody's heard. Anybody that got their feelings hurt gets listened to. Making sure everybody stays connected. They're the ones who organize the Friday happy hour get together for the team, the parties when big successes happen, those kinds of things. Fourth is you need the energizer. This is the person who will just get it done. This is the person who just every day is grinding it out step by step by step. Now, sometimes there's a cost to having this person on the team, and that is that they will grind it out over the top of people. If those people are not contributing, they will just roll right over the top of them. Next is you need the customer advocate, the person who advocates for the customer. This is the person who either is tightly connected to a customer or customers, or they're the ones taking the information from the team and going to validate it with customers. Warning here, this is not the person who acts as a proxy to customers. Nobody in your team is a proxy for your customer. You have to get up from your desk, you have to go out, and you have to engage with real customers. This is the person who's that bridge. They're not acting as the customer, but they're going out and talking and collecting information from the customer, and they're validating what you're doing with customers. Next is you need the Radar O'Reilly. The Radar O'Reilly, this is from the movie TV show MASH. This is the person who can find and secure anything your team needs, either by understanding the process inside the organization, such as procurement and approvals, or who has a Rolodex he can exercise to secure whatever the team needs to be successful. Make sure you've got your Radar O'Reilly. Next is the designer. Design is no longer a behind-the-scenes activity. It is front and center with everything that touches the customer. You no longer build a product and then throw it over the wall, and then there's the designer. And here's a bonus one. I said 7, here's number 8. Number 8 is neurodiversity. Get people who think differently on your team, that they can see what others don't see in a unique and different way. Some people are linear thinkers, some are spatial thinkers, some are connection thinkers. You need to get people who have different thinking styles. That will be a key to your success. So again, size. For me, 6 to 8, never to exceed 12. Optimal team size for innovation. And you need these 7 people: visionaries, leaders, mothers, energizers, customer advocates. You need the Radar O'Reilly. You need the designer, and you need neurodiversity as number 8. So with that, thanks for joining me today. Sorry, I feel like I'm losing my voice here. I appreciate this time together that you give me by listening, and hopefully you find this information useful. Is there something I can help you with? Feel free to drop me an email, ping me on LinkedIn. Just note that you're a listener to the show. That way you don't get filtered out, because I literally get hundreds of requests a week. But you as a listener, I'm more than willing to help you out. Drop me an email, phil@killerinnovations.com, or just ping me over on LinkedIn. Can I ask a favor? Can you tell others about the show? Help us spread the word. Give us a rating over on iTunes or wherever you get the podcast. That includes now Spotify, iHeart, iTunes, obviously, or Google Play, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. So can you help us out? Can you tell others? Help us spread the word. Also, if you've got suggestions or ideas for guests, love to hear it. Drop us a note. And as always, all the show notes are over at killerinnovations.com. You can check out the archive. Season 16 is going to kick off soon here. Yes, season 16. So don't go anywhere. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.
This show is distributed by the Innovators Network. For more information and other great shows and content, visit theinnovators.network.